Hi guys, it's Trevor Tolliver here, and you're listening to the Blue Day podcast.
Fellow Chelsea supporters, here at the Blue Day podcast, it is my privilege to welcome our guest today. He made 115 appearances for the club, and during his time with Chelsea, he won the League Cup, the UEFA Cup Winners' Cup, and the UEFA Super Cup, all in 1998. Plus, he played alongside the likes of Steve Clarke, Robbie Di Matteo, and Gianfranco Zola. Here is Michael Duberry. Michael, welcome to the show. How are we?
I'm good. I'm very good. Thanks for having me on. It's been a long time coming. Finally got it together. So thank you for having me. And thanks for your patience.
They say patience is a virtue. So no, this is definitely well worth the wait. So it's great to have you on. I want to start the interview as I have done with me previous interviews, if I can, Michael. Take us back to the moment right from the very start when you decided that you wanted to become a professional footballer. What moment was it that triggered that for you?
I listen. And I've said the story many times. I got into football because my mum said this kid running around the house had too much energy. So about 8 or 9, went to my local team, Enfield Rangers, and it was just go and play there. I wasn't the kid that had the aspiration of being a footballer. Caribbean mum and dad. My dad was into his cricket when West Indies were conquering everyone, and into his betting his horses and his dogs. So I'm sure if I'd played for cricket for West Indies, it would have been a bit more pleasure at the time. So it was just a case of getting into football. I wasn't at the beginning the most technical one. I was just there. Everyone had, at that time, everyone was a young kid at Spurs and doing this. And I was just this big, tall, gangly, fast and strong kid. Even started off in goal, then was a striker, had the pace, kick it long and I chased after it. Had the 1 in 15 ratio of scoring, 15 chances, score that one goal, I suppose. But then I kept going, grew into it. And my mindset was always the next goal. So under 10s, it was, to improve and get better. And then whenever one was getting into the county, I want to be in the county. So I improved to get in the county, get in the districts. Everyone was at a club to get signed. And luckily, I think 12, I come to Chelsea as a schoolboy. So it was like, get my schoolboy forms. It was like to get the next forms. So I've got my 15 to 16 schoolboy forms. Next one was to get my YTS. So that was the aim. So then I got my YTS. Next one was to get my pro. And luckily at Chelsea, after a year of YTS, I signed professional forms, just turned 17. And so it wasn't like I was 9, 10 and went to bed with a football under my arms. It was just got into it, had the determination as a kid, wanted to improve, loved it, wanted to get better, wanted to be the best, and then it just grew and always took the next stage and the next stage and the next stage and the next stage.
Who were your idols growing up as a kid?
Football ones, yeah, so I'd say started off Glenn Hoddle,
Mm.
because I just like Glenn Hoddle. He was like the David Beckham, the iconic like figure, looked cool, the tassels out of his socks. I'm North London, so there's a lot of Spurs around me. John Barnes, black player, a lot of black families. It was John Barnes. Um, and then like when I started playing more, one of the ones it might surprise a lot of people was Des Walker because he reminded me of myself, pacey. Um, he doesn't get enough credit. Des Walker as a player gets forgotten about, but one time was I'd say arguably the best central defender in the world. Um, and then that was the sort of players I liked. As a professional, there was other players that I looked on and liked. Maldini, like as a looked on, but young age, Glenn Hoddle was one of the first ones, and say John Barnes and Des Walker. Those were the ones that stood out early on.
Now, as you said before, you came through the youth ranks at Chelsea. What was that like for you, sort of coming into the side and sort of having time spent with the academy? Because obviously Chelsea's youth was not what it is now, is it?
It wasn't as far in terms of winning, but as terms of production line, it's always been great. It's so one of the attractions as a young player was you saw the youth team players get in the first team. So you when I was coming in, Jason Cundy, David Lee, Bobby Stewart, Damian Matthew, they're all first team. Gareth Hall, they're all in the first team, and in closer, Frank Sinclair, Eddie Newton, they're all in. So all these players that were once schoolboys to YTS, so there was this visible path that you saw that you can actually get in the first team. And yes, it was a stage where it wasn't the world European superior Chelsea that we see now, but at the same time, for a kid, you're going into it's Chelsea, and you can get in the first team. So coming through the schoolboys, going into Harlington, Heathrow, and then seeing the Graham Stewart, the Jason Cundy, these young players, but now with the first team, seeing Frank Sinclair, just new pros, Andy Myers that are like just a few years older. So it was all like touchable. It was all like I could be part of it. So it's like it was possible. It wasn't like this. I suppose now, as great it is that you win the FA Youth Cup for some of the players now, but it seems so far away. It's not even touchable for those kids, those young players. But now, when I was coming through, it was part of actually, I could be part of this.
Fast forward to May of '94 when you would make your debut for Chelsea. It was against Coventry City. When did you know that you was going to be in the team, and sort of how did you get yourself prepared mentally for that sort of moment in your young career?
I think it was the day before. Glenn Hoddle said you're involved and you're playing. So, oh, better tell my mum, my brother. They come along, and it was like, all right. And Glenn Hoddle just a few words. Can't remember what words, but he just give me some words of encouragement. And to be fair, as we go on this, Glenn Hoddle was very hard and disciplined on me. Like, and that I forever like am indebted for him because he kept so much like the humility and the humbleness about me like throughout the thing. So that was that throughout the coming to the game, Stamford Bridge. Was I nervous? Not really. I've always faith in my ability. I always tell the story that when I walked into Chelsea YTS at 16, 17, I believed I was the best defender in the club. Even though I was young, I believed I was fast, I was strong, I could handle anyone, I can get there. Even though there's Paul Elliott, Erling Johnson, Hemon Cow, I still believed I was the best defender in the club. And I kept that belief throughout my time in the club. Whether it's way off, true at some stage or whatever, that's my belief. So going into the first game at Coventry, I had no fear. And most young players have no fear. And starting the game, I remember starting the game, and it was the end where you used to have the clock at the Matthew Harding stand, didn't they? Used to have a stand and a clock that end. And I remember playing the game, and whether it's adrenaline going, whatever it was Peter Onlove playing. I was chasing him about, and I thought, oh my God, like, I can feel like a little cramp in my calf, like cramps. Only like, look, how long gone? Like 6 minutes gone. I'm thinking, how's that? Like, but obviously adrenaline. Got through the game, but I just remember chasing. He was tricky. He was running around. Dealt with it. Thought, oh my God, wow, brilliant! Like I played. Remember, every kid's like to play in the Chelsea first team. I always remember I was going to a youth team game, and Andy Myers made his debut. I think it was at Tottenham, and I think he might have even scored or been involved in the goal. He was going youth team. Like for us, it's like one of our youth team players in the first team. So to get there was like brilliant. And yeah, so to play my first game, it was just like wow. I've played in like Chelsea. I played a first team game. Like I played the first. Even now, saying I played a professional first team game for Chelsea. So it was a massive thing.
What was Glenn Hoddle like as a coach overall?
Very good. Like
Mm.
for me, I don't know what people think, but I think that the Chelsea you see now in them foundation bricks, his name is etched in there as to part of. Listen, Chelsea's got massive history in a club, but part of what you see now, he's etched in the foundations of it. For me personally, um, when I call it my second debut, because after the first one, I went on loan and it took a bit of time, and I come back and then I played again at Ellen Road, and then that was the sort of like the rebirth and how I come. Once in Micah Richard burst on the scene, but that's how I come through. Um, and so for me, he was always making sure I kept my feet on the ground. He told me, "You ain't talking to any press." So after games, any game, I couldn't do interviews. He'd speak for me, which I'm like, oh my God, like they're gonna think I'm this arrogant kid. But as I come out the old Stamford Bridge tunnel, I walked through and didn't do interviews, didn't do nothing. He made sure I did extra training. I scored a goal at Old Trafford in the 2-1 victory, and I thought, I'll go and happy on the phone, phoning it's my mum's birthday, phoning my mum. One of might have been Terry Bird said the gaffer wants you in the change room. Got off the bus thinking, yes, gaffer, what are you doing? Carry the skips. So I'm carrying the skips out. There's Peter Schmeichel and all the Ryan Giggs, and I'm walking past holding skips. So most games after when I was playing, it was when everyone got on the bus, even though I was playing, I was holding skips. So it was very like grounding and but it's the best thing ever. So why am I always thinking, why am I going to be this superstar when Gianfranco's there, Gianluca Vialli's there? Robbie, do you know what I mean? There's no reason for this kid from North London to be anything but humble and grounded.
You mentioned just there about the loan spell you had at Bournemouth. Was that a case of your decision that you was looking to seek first team football, or was it the club's decision that they felt a move for you would
Yeah,
be more beneficial in the long term?
yeah. It wasn't even that big. I wasn't like I need to. I made my debut, and that was because they had the FA Cup, and he just needed to rest some players, and that was
Mm.
the option.
Mm.
So that was that. And it wasn't like, oh, why am I not playing again? It was like I made my debut. It was come near the end of the season anyway. And then I went on loan to Bournemouth, and it was like, go and play some football. And to be honest with you, I love Bournemouth. I remember Mel Machem, the manager. I wanted to stay at Bournemouth because all of a sudden now, instead of being this small part of this big club like Chelsea and didn't really feel part of it, I'm at Bournemouth. Like they love me there. I'm doing well. The manager loves me. Now I feel like I now know how a Dennis Wise or a Steve Clark might feel, like how you feel loved and being part of the first team. I wanted to stay. And then they recalled me early, and I was like, I don't want to go back. I didn't want to go back because I didn't want to go back to the same feeling of like just being in reserves and seeing the first team over there. I love playing in front of wasn't a big crowd, a crowd and games meaning more. But I got called back, and yeah, it was a Glenn Hoddle's vision, and the loans were a little bit different than it is now. People go on loan and don't play. It was like you go on loan to play and learn your craft,
Mm.
and then come back. Now you go on loan to ease the burden of maybe the numbers and go out, and what
Yeah.
you do with your loanees is down to you. You have to play. There's no guarantee of playing. So it's a little bit different, but it wasn't a big thing of Gaffer, why not playing? I never spoke to Glenn Hoddle like that. It wasn't like that at all. It was like I was like, if I speak to Gaffer, he just had me like it's like I think one of the first and last gaffers I was ever really scared of. I was a young lad, and I come from, remember as well, it's Glenn Hoddle was as a kid,
Yeah.
and even when he signed, I was like, I remember it was after my first, I was done a first year YTS, I signed pro, and then in the summer, and that time, I remember Dave Webb was a manager, and he said to me, "Come on, you're with the first team. You're going to Southampton. You're gonna go with the first team." I was like, "Oh my God, wow!" I went on to what goes. You can do a warm up with the first team. So I was like, brilliant, like buzzing, like, oh my God. So I remember Andy Townsend was the captain. Well done, dude. It was like brilliant. Hey, listen. he's done really well. He's going to lead us out. So the old then you go down the steps, lead us out, be proud of it. Oh, let's go, everybody. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm leading the team out. Like, oh my God, I'm Whitey leading the team out. He says, yes, everyone ready? So goes, let's go, dudes, get them going. So I'm running out. And as I run out the old den, they're all standing there. So now all of a sudden, there's the Chelsea fans in the far corner are clapping. And then as I'm getting close again, who's that? They clapped at me like this kid at Chelsea shirt. So I'm like going, but luckily that they come not long behind, and they sort of all, and I'm like sitting there going, oh, they're all laughing at me. But yeah, and then obviously Glenn Hoddle signed in the summer, and I was a bit worried, thinking like he's not going to like me. I'm just this robust defender, not skillful like him, can't play and do what he does. He's not going to like me, like. And then Graham Rix come in and it changed the way we played, the philosophy of football, and it went from there.
Fast forward a little bit, you mentioned when you came back from your loan, it was cut short, but when you came back, you was pretty much in the first team quite quickly, and you was playing week in, week out in around the late 95, and you would feature in some interesting games for Chelsea. We've got a draw against Man United at Old Trafford. We got a draw at Highbury, which our record against Arsenal wasn't great at that point, even back then. We would then have the game against Liverpool at Stamford Bridge, where we would draw. I think John Spencer scored a cracking goal that night as well. So for you, in a sense of being the young guy coming into the team and being part of sort of that particular side's run, that must have given you a huge confidence boost.
Yeah, I mean, went to Leeds, play against Tony Boa, like did well.
Yeah.
I remember I was like, oh wow. Like, I remember he was on fire then. And I remember through that run, Glenn Hoddle would say, done well there. But next week's your test when you play against Teddy Sheringham and Chris Armstrong. So I'm like, okay, play against Spurs, do well against them. Well done. But next week's your test when you play against Alan Shearer and Les Ferdinand at Newcastle. So did well there. That's good. But next week's your real test when you play against Bergkamp and Ian Wright. And it kept on. So every minute I'm like going, well, I can't fail next week because then, so it kept that bit being part of it. And it was a good run for me and like getting some great reviews, but again, not being able to speak, just focusing on my football. So being part of that and the Glenn Hoddle, I think at the time my legs gave his free at the back vision. Andy Myers the other side, he had these legs there, and Dave Lee in the middle that can play. So it kind of helped him what he wanted to do. But for me, it was just great playing and getting a little run of games.
And one particular highlight of that season was the cup game against Newcastle. We got the 1-1 draw. Newcastle scored late, I think, for Alan Shearer. We then go to St James's Park. It was a midweek. Gets to the penalty shootout. We go through. Everybody sort of going, massively sort of joyous. One little question I did have for you: did you not fancy taking one of those penalties?
No, and I'll tell you the story. So they're taking penalties, and I'm thinking, I hope don't come to me. And I saw a Rude walk off. A Rude, you're not taking one. He said, sometimes you have to know. So thinking, if Rude's not taking one, there's no pressure on me. And I just stood next to Rude, and luckily we went through. But he didn't want to take one. I thought, oh, that's fair enough. Then sometimes it ain't like a bad thing you have to know. Yeah, would I have been there and then like take one? It would have been nerve-wracking. It's been like, what am I going to do? I'd had 500 different thoughts in my head, what I'm going to do. But when Rude stood over there and said, I'm not taking one, I'm like, I'm all right with my decision.
But it wouldn't be too long before you did score your first Chelsea goal. And I believe it was against Grimsby in the next round
Yeah.
after that at Stamford Bridge. Again, that was another replay. Your celebration seemed like you did enjoy that one.
I think I can't remember what I think it was the arm. I think I was trying to do it. I think the one I was doing at Ian Wright. He done the little arms back or messing around it. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I didn't score many. Should have scored more, but yeah, it was one just scoring. And remember, like I'm a youth team player playing in the first team. I just want to make an impact, a positive impact. And yeah, so scoring was like a good thing.
And it continued when we played Wimbledon in the next round at Selhurst Park. When you went up for the corner, you got the header. I remember Ruud sort of
Yeah,
showed
Rude
on the
was chasing
highlights.
me. Like,
Ruud
yeah,
Gullit was chasing you. You know, started to sort of get a little bit of a momentum going in the FA Cup, didn't we? That particular season.
yeah. I remember scoring. I've still got a picture somewhere. Rude chasing me like me going mad, and the face is like it seemed that it was like a bit foggy. The pitch was horrible,
Yeah.
but I just remember the atmosphere like was brilliant. Not a horrible place to go and play Selhurst Park. Horrible place to get to. Anyone knows Selhurst Park. You know what I mean? So for us to go through it and win and that, be part of that celebration. Even the picture just looked murky, like foggy, and but it was a great atmosphere. Just to I think we won 3-1. I think we won 3-1. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So I
yeah.
think mine was the second goal, and then someone went and spoilt it and scored another. But yeah, so it was a good feeling.
One little bit that came out of that, especially from that season, did you like the orange and grey away kit?
I didn't mind it. I think that it had my that shirt. It had a rip in it. I think it might have been Mick Hartford or someone. I think that the shirt, one of my orange shirts, got a massive rip in it. It might have been that game. It was quite an ugly kit, but it's actually quite iconic now. And it's like one of the
Yes.
things that, as time goes on, you just remember that iconic orange kit. And I think the last time I once wore it at QPR Loftus Road, and I went down the line and I went to whip a crossing. It got deflected, and I think we got a goal off it. I think we ended up winning. And I remember, I think going in the interview room, doing an interview. I think with Paul Furlong, and I think I must have used every football cliche in the book. Young interview. Do you know what I mean? He's used everything. Yeah, the gaffer said, half time. I think I used every football cliche in my interview in a span of 2 minutes.
And it was the round after that, we would play Man United at Villa Park in the semi-final. We'd go a goal up through Ruud Gullit. United came back. It was one of those games where it was probably a game too far for that particular group of players, working under Glenn. But we certainly gave Man United, who were at the time looking to try and win the title again, we certainly gave them a game that day, didn't we?
Yeah, but I think in that game, I think both our wing backs got injured.
Yeah.
So like we was in the game, but then two integral parts of not only one wing back but both. It changes things. Um, yeah, it just changed the dynamic, and they obviously you see it now, or with Chelsea that you can get over the line. You just know how to get over the line, and I think that Man United just knew how to get over the line, and you can be in there with them. They just know how to get over the line, whatever it is, and the inexperience, not as individuals, because we had some great individuals, but as a team of just being able to get over the line was quite obvious. But yeah, we did have our both our wing backs. Terry Philo went down with his
Yeah.
hamstring. And then I think it was Clarkey. Did Clarkey go down or someone else went down? And
Yeah.
it's like both your wing backs gone. It's like, well, that's just massive. So it changed.
I'm going to fast forward now to the summer of '96 when football nearly came home. Chelsea had a new manager in place. Glenn Hoddle would leave to join up with the England national team, and Ruud Gullit came in as player manager. Do you remember where you was when you heard the news that that was going to happen? What was your initial thoughts at the time that there was going to be quite a significant change at Chelsea Football Club in?
The news. So if that summer, if so, the end of the last that season, before Glenn left, I went to some football awards and I won Match Magazine Young Player of the Year, beating Ryan Giggs and Robbie Fowler. I think 'cause they couldn't get down to London, so they thought they'd give it to me anyway. So I remember. So I always tell the story. I was like young player, and from North London, they got me a limousine, picked me up outside my mum's house, and I'm in a limousine, and in the limousine is Linda Lusardi. I'm like, oh God, I'm like, made it. I'm in a limousine with Linda Lusardi. Those who don't like Linda Lusardi, Google it. And I'm like, oh my, so I'm sitting in there. So we get to the awards, win the awards, go to the after party. So I'm there with Eddie Newton and Rude. And we're talking and having like, having a laugh. And Rude starts, like getting into me a bit. Oh, you're the typical Indies defender. You're too stiff. You're too stiff. You need to loosen up. And he's grilling me. I'm like, relax. Remember his teammate. Relax, Rude, man. Come on, man. Like steady. Like, no, you this and that. If I was ever the manager, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. I'm like, well, yeah, all right. But it's we're on a night out. So then when when Glenn goes and the new manager's Rude, I'm like, oh my God, really? Um, so he becomes the manager, and it's like, okay, like I didn't have any fear because at that stage I'm a big part now of the team. Like
Mm.
the good bits in the team, I'm part. I'm like, my legs, my energy, my pace is a huge part of the team. So I didn't really have like, oh my God, oh my God. But then as time went on and the manager, like even though I was huge part and big part, it wasn't as smooth as I wanted it to be under Rude.
And the season of the 96-97 started to get a little bit of inconsistent to begin with. Certain results weren't going our way just a little bit. And then sort of a couple of months later, sort of into the season, the club was rocked by the death of Matthew Harding. What sort of relationship did you have with Matthew Harding? Did you sort of know him well? Did you have a good rapport with him? What memories do you have of
Yeah,
sort
so
of Mr. Harding?
he would always be in and around the team, but I'm a young lad, so how you doing? You all right, dudes? You all right? Yeah, like, the head check. Yeah, how you doing? Yeah, good. Yeah, good. But his relationship was more in depth with the senior players, the Wises, the Clarks.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? But with, how you doing, Matthew? You okay? Yeah, you're right, dude. Good, well done. And he'd have his bit. So that was my relationship with him. Not like was in depth. I'm 21 and like, 20. Like, so it was a little bit of a, how you doing? I knew he was a fan, but I knew also he was a little bit upstairs. So we had that element of respect and we had a little good relationship. But it was always like a friendly one. He was very tactile and like that sort of person. So it was good. How you doing? You all right? Yeah, yeah. And that was it. So when the news come, it was a shock because it's like, oh my God, like this guy was just in the change room last week. So oh my God. So it was a bit of a eerie feeling. And I remember the game, the against Spurs on like
Hmm.
we did the silence. And I think I still got somewhere. I got the man of the match. There's a like we got a little tanker. So when I look at that, it's remember that game and see the pictures and that sort of stuff. It was just an eerie for the first time, like that sort of atmosphere. Um, uh, was a little bit weird. I remember the only time I've done that, I played a game for the under-21s doing the Princess Diana one, but that one was a little bit more closer to home and in the eerie feeling like I still got a switch on. Like, so you're trying to remember I'm young, so I can't relax. I've got to focus, 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 and then to not get drawn into the whole vibe of everything. So I've got to focus because I'm not that confident I can be here and everywhere. So it's a bit of a weird feeling.
You did get some personal revenge against Manchester United at Old Trafford. We'll talk about that game in a little bit more depth now. When you scored the goal past Peter Schmeichel, and then you had Vialli that scored the other goal, which was a great sort of 1v1 with him. Was that at that point probably the best away performance we had for such a long time, going against the champions and beating them in their own backyard?
Yeah, I never felt that there was any fear going to Old Trafford. Like it was just like wasn't like oh my God, Man United. It was just like going Old Trafford. It was like it was the atmosphere and the vibe was always good for us. And then just in the game, I remember that game. I had a few tussles with Eric Cantona. I think I got booked. There was one little in the corner. And I think like again, I was like I didn't care about reputations, and part of me was like. Cool, like, do you know what I mean? What? It's a football pitch anyway. Like, what's going to happen? Like, and all that aura, it didn't phase me. Do you know what I mean? Even when we played in the semi-final, didn't phase me at all. I wanted that. But yeah, when I scored, it was like, oh my God, wow. And I remember that celebration being on a Sky poster, Robbie in front of me. Um, and again, Luca taking my shine and scoring again. So it wasn't, but yeah, I think like listen, it was a great team performance. Um, it was just like, yeah, it was just a great team performance and especially to be part of. And, for me, the other day, someone mentioned like, my name would be forever etched and connected with Luca in that one game. Do you know what I mean? And,
Yeah.
it's like a nice thing for me, like just to have, that thing forever etched in history and associated with Gianluca Vialli and Chelsea together in that one thing.
There was some bad news for you that particular season. You did pick up quite a serious Achilles tendon injury that would mean that you was ruled out for the rest of the season. This must have been a bad setback for you, knowing that the last sort of 18 months you was having sort of a nice steady progression up through the ranks.
Yeah, it was like devastating. I remember like because in the build up there was all this talk of the next big thing and my name alongside Sol Campbell and all these other like who's going to be the next big one to come through. Um, my progression was going well. The club was on the rise. You see how the club was building and growing and slowly getting momentum. And one day in training, was doing training and I was running and I just felt, kick me, like turn around, like, 'cause you hear this, and there was no one around me, and my Achilles, Mike Banks run out, done the old squeezy calf test, like stretched it in, was operated in that day, and I was worried because I think like a season or 2 seasons before, Neil Webb had to retire for Achilles tendon injury. I'm like, oh my God. So I remember sitting in the hospital like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? Like this is it. Like, and I honestly, not even exaggerating for purpose of a story. Like, I'm thinking like this is it. Like, my career's done.
Mm.
But obviously, medical and science had advanced, and they got me done. And the rehab was pretty. I've never been injured before. If you've never been injured before, you got to come back to play at some sort of elite level and do it differently. It's difficult, difficult watching the team have success and moving on rapid, fast. Not even like just there and dwelling along. It's moving fast, and players are. I remember going to the injured and going to the FA Cup and watching. And I remember my mindset was like we won it, the FA Cup's there, and I'm saying I'm not holding that trophy until I win it. I'm gonna win. When I win it myself, I'm gonna hold it. Didn't get to hold it, to be fair, so I should have grabbed it when I should have had the chance. But yes, part of it, like just being part of. I still felt part of the team. I was part of it because I'm saying that I'm confident in myself getting back, but it's still a little bit of like the first one that first one in ages and that when you see like Scotty Minter, Robbie, and that running down with the celebrating and all that sort of stuff, like that first one that gave everyone that taste. We want more. But yeah, it was hard mentally because I've never been injured before, and to see the giant steps, and it's different. You're injured, but now you've got to catch up even more to where the club's going and at the pace the club's going. That was a difficult thing.
Just on a side note, when you talked about the FA Cup final of '97, which cup final song was better, '94 or '97?
Oh, what? The one with Suggs. Yeah. I remember. Yeah, the one with Suggs off Artisan. Yeah. Our one was better.
What was that day like? Because we had Eddie Newton on the show for a couple of years ago, and he said it was one of the most sort of harrowing days. He did not want to be right at the front, sort of knowing that he was singing. He just wanted to be right at the back, not sort of
Yeah,
being seen or heard.
I think FA Cup songs got this connotation of embarrassment, haven't they? Like you got association of like embarrassment. And I remember we were at this studio, I think it was in Shepherd's Bush, and like, turning out me seeing Suggs from Madness. Oh, wow. And everyone there. And then to be fair, they had the faces at the front. We were just there singing. I think I'd been out the night before with Jodie. I think on Saturday, and so like you just there, just half lot hungover, but just being part of it. So to be part of an FA Cup song, all them things are iconic growing up, isn't it? Like to be part of an FA Cup song. And listen, I think it's one of the good ones. There's been some terrible ones. That was quite decent.
From a fan's perspective, I was a bit disappointed when they stopped playing it at Chelsea before matches, but
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just me. In terms of your progression though, and the next season was definitely one to savour. You'd play, you'd make your European debut for Chelsea in the 97-98 Cup Winners' Cup against Slovin Bratislava. What was that like as an experience for you playing in Europe for Chelsea?
I'd say one of my best experiences of football are have been European nights at Stamford Bridge. There's like it's just a different feel. Like um, it's a different feel from a league game in midweek. It's just a different feeling altogether. Like it's yeah. Um, and only what could imagine playing the Champions League game in at Stamford Bridge midweek, like because the European nights were like special. So for me to be part now playing European football for the club I've come through was like, I remember this is always part of in my head. Like I've come through the rank, I'm a homegrown. And to be fair, I've always said that um, I've got a lot more love because I was a homegrown. Um, I got a lot more say freedom, but a lot more like, whoa, he's homegrown. So I always understood that my relationship with the fans was like he's come through the ranks. So we've got the superstar, but he's not say one of our own, but he's one of our own. He come through the ranks. So I appreciate that. It was in my mind as a player, and I knew that I had that special relationship with the fans that always had homegrowns in the team. They've always had that affiliation of this is our club, but this is a product of our club. Do you know what I mean? Is that so? I knew that I had that. So it was always special to come through and another landmark tick for me that debut, yet scored a goal, yet now European football, which is a big thing anyway. So yeah, for my club.
And one particular moment of that sort of early part of the season, sort of going into Christmas, was the 6-1 thrashing against Tottenham at White Hart Lane that people still talk about to this day. One of the arguably a top performance from Chelsea. Um, and it was sort of then that things started sort of progress quite nicely in Europe and also in the league. I think we was going up against Arsenal as well, sort of in the league where we was having a nice little unbeaten run.
Yeah.
And then sort of the wheels started to come off a little bit in terms of Rude Hullet gone and Viali Swift straight in. What was your sort of reaction to that at the time? Because there did seem to be a lot of shock, a lot of sort of confusion around, why did Rude Hullet leave and why sort of Viali straight thrown into the lion's den, so to speak.
From my point of view, like it was the rude relationship was pretty. Listen, as a player, wow, I'm playing with Rude Hullet, unbelievable. Um, as a manager, it was pretty strained. At times, like I liked him and didn't like I thought like, oh my God, iconic this guy. But then it was just a little bit like I didn't like. There's elements of his management style I didn't understand. I wasn't used to. You know, you speak to a manager would explain his decisions. He didn't feel he had to, which was quite frustrating, especially as a young player because I want to improve. Why? And I play and tell me, then I can go and work on it. And sometimes he didn't feel he had to. So when Luca got the job, when Rude went and Luca got the job, it was like cool. Like, do
Right.
you know what I mean? Like Luca was a quick story to give you some context. So Rude would make all the young players, the young English players, go out before we started training doing this. You got to do this skill circuit. You got to like use touch circuit. So we have to go out. Say training started at 10:30. We'd have to go out at 10 and do this skill circuit he'd done for us. Like you had to do all these little bits and pieces before training started. And fair enough, you're in the first team, but all your peers were in the dressing room, like in the warm, sometimes looking and
Okay.
giggling and laughing, right? So you're going out doing it. But after two of them like going out there, hey, this your name was on the list, you got to go out and do it. And it didn't it seemed like a punishment if it was framed in a different way, but it seemed like a punishment. But then about the third time of doing it, guys back going out, oh, Gianfranco, hey, come on, come on, come on. Luca, come on, come on. So they'd come out and do it with us. Now it didn't feel like they'd have there's enthusiasm, they brought a bit of fun to it. So if it was punished, whatever it is seen, they put it in a different way. And that's why, honestly, Gianfranco, love him. Can't speak. Anyone talks about the best player I ever played with, Gianfranco. The best person you've been around as a footballer, Gianfranco. Like Luca, not far from that. Like the way they framed it, they could see what was going on. And now it's all of a sudden now. And what happened was, after a while, the players in the dressing room, they come out. They were doing it because now at this, do you know what I mean? And it flows. So there's a little bit, but as a manager, if Rude would have framed it differently, it would have been, not a problem. So the little bits, but that's why when Luca took over, like from the very start, love Luca, brilliant. So when he took over, it's like, okay, cool. I just got to play well, and hopefully he likes me because I think I'm still the best player at defending the club, and that was that.
With Vialli at the helm, we progress into the latter stages of the Cup Winners' Cup. We beat Real Betis. I now remember there was a sort of a great performance away there when Flo scored a couple, and then we go up against a Middlesbrough in the Coca-Cola Cup. In terms of Europe, though, after beating Betis, because that was on the Thursday night and we had the cup final on the Sunday, was there talk amongst the boys in the dressing room about, how well we could potentially do in Europe this season?
No, it's just like there's an air of confidence and belief, but there wasn't like this whisper, this come like chat.
Right.
Whether if the senior players would have spoke between themselves when they're sitting there over their pasta and their red wine, us young players when we're sitting here over a doner kebab and a can of Coke, we're going, it's doing well with me. So it wasn't that conversation, to be fair.
I want to talk about the League Cup final now at Wembley. You played a huge part in it. What an occasion for yourself and for your family. When did you know you was going to be involved in the starting 11, and what was the sort of the build up? What was a day like for you before the match?
I can't remember when the team was announced, but I had a feeling. I thought I would play up. I mean, I had a feeling I'd play. I remember at the time I was sponsored by Nike, and they had Mercurials just come out, and they were sending me some boots to wear in the cup final, like. And so we got to Wembley. Remember, again, North London boy, drove past Wembley, plenty of time to go into IKEA with my mum and all that sort of stuff. And now I'm playing at Wembley, like the iconic Wembley. Many times sat and watched FA Cups here, Cup finals. Actually, I played at Wembley before when we played Luton in the semi-final, and they had the youth team playing in a game before on the pitch before we played the semi-final. So I'd played on the pitch before. So I was like, yes, we're playing at Wembley. So I wasn't nervous, wasn't because of the cup final. I was confident, and I've always had that approach. During the game, and like many of my thing was, again, because there's so many huge players in my team, I always wanted to show my worth, my value as in this team, like all these world stars, internationals. So my thing was, make sure I'm not the weakest link, make sure I don't let this team down, and make sure no one can say it's because of him. Do you know what I mean? So my thing was just do what you got to do, play a game, be that defender, give the team what they need, and that's what you do. And that was my approach in every game and the cup finals, and that was my approach to that one. And to be fair, like when I speak to people, my best ever football stat is I played 3 cup finals and had 3 clean sheets.
Yeah,
So
not bad.
no, it's all right, isn't it? Can't ask for more if you're a defender. So
Absolutely not. And
yeah.
we'll talk. You mentioned on one of those cup finals was against Stuttgart in the Cup Winners' Cup final. Bit of a scrappy occasion. It was quite tense, quite a little bit nervous. Not one team wanted to make the mistake, but then Zola comes on, and it don't take him long to make an impact. He gets the ball, smashes it, top right hand corner. Euphoria in the stands. People were going crazy. The players were going crazy. Take us back to that moment for you. As you said, only a couple of months later, the club would win the Coca-Cola Cup, and then we end up winning the Cup Winners' Cup, which for Chelsea, again, this wasn't a Chelsea that was in Europe every single season at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, again, like I go into the cup final with Bell's palsy. And those who don't know what Bell's palsy is, it's a mini stroke. So one side of my face is paralyzed and I can't speak. I had it a week or 2 weeks before this cup final, and that's why before I wasn't playing. But like I had to talk, I had to hold my mouth up like this. So it was like I didn't even know if I was gonna play. I'd said that I'll train everything, but like I think Lauren Charvet was playing before, and I didn't know where I was going to play. Played, so I'm thinking, don't let the team down. Again, do you got to do? Make sure you're not the weakest link. Make sure that they don't. It's not on you. Playing, it's just like defending. Wasn't the best game, but I'm just like making sure I'm just doing my defending. Might be a bit scrappy, whatever it is, and I'm just trying to focus on every time I need to talk to someone. Like I have to hold my mouth, so I'm trying to check. I'm like that sort of stuff. And again, where it's close, it's close. Every chance you're thinking, oof, oh, it's like nerve-wracking. You just don't want to be the one to let down in a cup final, which means that everyone will forever remember it. When Gianfranco scored the goal, I'm like, oh my God, like like inside, yes, concentrate, Michael, yes. Do you know what I mean? And then just like then you started to in your head counting the clock down. Don't go, "Ref, how long?" I couldn't even speak anyway. But I'd always remember the last minute when I see Danny Granville the other day. I was with him the other day at the Chelsea lunch, and I was saying you should have went on and scored. Like he had a little break near the end when he should have went on and scored. But yeah, it was just when the final whistle went. For me, it was just like, oh my God! Like I didn't realize at the time, but to win a European trophy is massive. Like at the time you're young, and I explained it before that by the time I'm 21, 22, I've won 3 trophies at Chelsea. You just think you're going to do it all the time. And I saw a documentary, John Macro, and he won his last major at 24 and never won anything since. And then
Right.
I'm 22 and I'm thinking this is going to be my cup finals, trophies, is going to be my career. And so you don't actually appreciate it. We played, I think it was it might have been Real Betis. It was in the semi-final or something. And Sparky had a camera, obviously no phone. He had a camera taking pictures of it. I go, Sparky, what are you doing, man? Like he's like, remember, this is Sparky. I'm like, goes, listen, you got to appreciate these moments. His mind thinking near the end, you've got to appreciate when you get into cup finals, they're not easy to come by. I'm thinking, what? I'm in a semi-final. So you don't appreciate what it was. That the celebrations, yes, brilliant. But then, you don't really appreciate for what it is. If I'm a 28 or 30-year-old in that cup final, I'm soaking it up. I'm standing on the pitch. I'm looking at it. Yes, you do, we're doing the run into the crowd, the famous "Oi" and doing all that. But you're soaking up. You just stand on here at 21. You're like, what? You're just in it, going around, look at the medal, way, and just doing it with your fellow youth team players.
It was a big, big summer as well for Chelsea. It wasn't just that. We had the World Cup as well in France of '98. After that, the club ends up bringing in Marcel Desailly, which unbelievable signing for Chelsea, obviously at the time, and it still is to this point. Was you excited that he was coming in? Because obviously with him being a centre back as well, was that sort of provide like a healthy competition? But did you see it as also somebody you can learn from because the amount of experience that he has as well?
Yeah, I was excited. Obviously, you're thinking at the same time, he just played the World Cup with Frank and thinking, oh, the partnership's already made there. But I was confident I can break that.
Right.
And I always said, like, part of my um my mindset was I'm the best defender. Marcel, cool, that's all right. Like, I'll show him. And that's the mentality I had. I'll show him. And obviously, it it started off Marcel and Frank, and main part of it was there. But I was like, I just want a chance, and I just want a chance, and that's always been my thing. I can play with Marcel, no problem. Do you know what I mean? The rock and the brick wall, whatever they want to label it, like I can play with him. And just didn't get enough chances to play with him, and a lot of my thing was I always say I did spoke to someone did an interview the other day, and my thing was that there was times when Frank wasn't playing well, and I just want like get me in then. And then he was given a long chance to regain form, and I just wanted the chance to let me play then. Do you know what I mean? Because Frank's quality bit underrated at the time. Like if you look now, what he could do with a football was like wow. Do you know what I mean? So had that, but sometimes there was other bits that like come on now, get me in. Like me and Marcel there, no one's getting past us. So that was my mentality, wanting to get in. But when he signed, it wasn't like, oh no. Do you know what I mean? So it was just like, okay, well now I have to go again and show. And I just wanted, hoping that Luca would, give me a chance if any of them slipped up to go and have a run.
And at the end of the summer of 1998, we would end up winning another trophy, and not a small mean feat as well, beating the mighty Real Madrid in the UEFA Super Cup with Gus Poyet scoring the goal to seal the trophy for Chelsea. Did it sort of start bringing like that winning mentality to the group? Because you did have players that had experience of winning trophies at that stage, but also you had the, like as you said, the young guys coming through having that experience. Did you sort of see beating Real Madrid as, say, like a stepping stone to potentially trying to win the league, maybe that season or the season after?
I remember. So I'll tell you this story because it's a Lucas story. So part of we get the Super Cup against Real Madrid, and actually he wanted Juventus, but they beat him. And I remember he was at Monaco. We train in, and we're doing it. Obviously, did train before, and everyone's going off. Said, "Dubes, can I see you?" I'm like, "Oh, he's just going to tell me that Marcel and Frank are playing because like Marcel just arrived." I'll say, "Yes, Luca." He went, "Hey, smile at me. Come on." He's like, arm around me. He said, "Listen, for what you done last year, getting us here, you're going to start. I'm going to play Marcel in midfield. Okay? So you're going to start. You're going to play this game because you're one of the reasons why we're here." I was like, wow. And I'm forever indebted to that. I remember I saw him years later. I was in Nobu restaurant and I saw what Luca said for years. Hey, oh, you know what? I owe you. Remember that? He's like, all right, dude, all right, calm down. Do you know what I mean? But forever indebted. And that for me is like a huge thing because I could be sitting there saying I've won the Super Cup and not played, but I played my part, and that was him giving the opportunity. So when we won that, obviously the signings, the players, the squad. I think Michael Laudrup was there then, wasn't he? Like, was it Michael or
Yeah.
Brian? Michael, yeah, Michael Laudrup.
Brian
So
Laudrup, yeah.
yeah,
Brian
yeah,
Laudrup, yeah.
yeah, Brian Laudrup. Yeah, so it was like we've got a squad. We couldn't like compete like all these internationals, and it wasn't that we just had these players. We were gelling. We had this. We can play together. It wasn't just these names that just. So it was like, yeah, it was like a thing where there was confidence. There was an aura. Half these players knew how to win. Half these players, nearly all of them knew how to win. They knew what to do. So it was like a huge thing. So it was good momentum going into it. But then I think it was like, was it, you know, the when the Marcel and Frank played Coventry, we lost the start of the season. It wasn't a great start. So, um, but we got going, and it was just a case of we can compete. And I think that's when you started seeing glimpses more on the highs and the dips that like we're onto some things, and people started to really fear what was going on at Stamford Bridge.
And one sort of game that you could sort of say everything started to fall into place a little bit was beating Arsenal 5-0 at Highbury in the League Cup, when that was sort of something that you didn't really see much of, like Arsenal losing by that scoreline at Highbury, especially with Chelsea having, okay, they made some changes, but they still had a decent enough squad that
Yeah,
just destroyed Arsenal that night. But also sort of coming through that period of Chelsea in 98 was a young John Terry. Came on against, I believe it was Aston Villa
yeah.
in the League Cup as well. What did you make of a young John Terry coming through, did you sort of concede little glimpses of what he could produce long term? What did you sort of see for his young future?
No, I think that John Terry becoming who he become was grafting every day and growing every day. So what you saw was a determined kid, good defender that never wore a top in training, just t-shirts, but was like good, confident, and a good defender. And that's what you saw, and that's what he showed. And then, but he grew, and I think that the times, the early times when he was around the senior players like Marcel, and he's a student, started to learn, started to pick up, started to develop. Then with the added confidence, and then with the added belief, and all of that started coming together. He is a product of his mindset. His ability was there, but he put everything. He's a student. He's all them things come together and started growing and growing and growing and growing until he become what he become. And then he grew again and had a level of consistency at that level is unbelievable. And you would never know that he wasn't pacey because his positioning, he never made it a thing. Only when people try to say it, but you wouldn't know. Yeah, he on the ball. He was as I think if someone looked at stats, his long passes were as good as a Frank Leboeuf, left and right foot. So you wouldn't know that. Defending wise was as strong as a Marcel. So he was just becoming this Frankenstein, this cocktail of every good attribute of every defender that he's been around and added to his game. And that's what you saw. And then, every leader he's been around, he was that. So that's what you saw. So when he came to Aston Villa, just saw this kid coming and pointing everywhere. Put your hands down, get in position. But then, yeah, he was just, confident in his own ability, we can do, but then he grew.
He certainly did, didn't he? He certainly did. He's fine player. Fast forward a little bit to the end of that particular season of the 98-99 season, and one game that stands out on that in a bit of the wrong reasons was the home game against Leicester, where the club was sort of still sort of chasing Arsenal, Man United a little bit. They weren't exactly there, but mathematically we could still win the league if obviously results did go our way. We go 2-0 up. Zola scores the lob, which again was only Zola could do at that point. You come off the bench. I believe there might have been an injury sort of coming on, and Vialli put you on, and then for whatever reason, the team just capitulated to the point where we don't win the match. The game finishes 2-2. I think Steve Guppy scored a curler, sort of as equaliser. What was your thoughts sort of after that particular game? Because they're sort of Chelsea fans sort of have this sort of like myth that something went wrong before the match. There was maybe a couple of arguments amongst players during the game that maybe Vialli tactically made some mistakes. Do you remember much about that particular game? Because again, people sort of say, well, if Chelsea didn't drop points in that match, we could have done something whereby we maybe would have won second. Or do you remember much about that particular?
Yeah. So the game is like a horrible. It's like someone give me a bit of Branston pickle that make me feel sick. So when you mention that game, it's horrible. Especially for a defender to come on like you're like all you've got to do is your clean sheet. You're actually on the hide nothing that and then they score. Whether I was on or off, it could happen. But I'll come on to defender to stop, and it doesn't. Before the game, I remember I was pissed off because I wasn't playing. I think he played. Who was he play? He played Albert Ferrer, I think, ahead or something like I'd done something different. Or I was like, well, how am I not playing? And I remember my like just being pissed off. And it's actually the last game I ever played pissed off. Because it didn't like have that effect. And then coming on 2-0 up, going into the game, and I think not long into it, they get a goal. I'm like, and it was like some scruffy, stupid like mishap in the box. I can't remember what it was. And you're like, bloody hell. And then it's like a bit of nervousness in and around it and in and around it. And you're thinking, just see this game out. And then just near the end, Steve Guppy just bends this ball in,
Yeah.
and it's like a flat Stamford Bridge that's like a flat dressing room. I remember I see something the other day. Wise was on Chelsea TV saying he blamed me. I was like, bit harsh, but if that's his perception, that's his tail on the thing. But that's you're gonna get if you're a sub coming onto a team that's 2-0 up and you're gone onto a defender to affect it in a positive way and help shore things up, and you actually don't, and team draws or loses, the finger's gonna be pointing at you. So that may be the perception, but I just remember like beginning, I think I should have played, being a bit peed off, coming on thinking, I'll show you then. And in the end, it turned out to be this flat thing that kind of it wasn't different if it happened 6 games before, but because there was an association with that's killed our league title, it's like, do you know what I mean? It's that sort of thing. I think that's the worst thing because it's always associated with we could have won a league. Yeah, and what if? I think that more the association of that game that from going 2-0 up and keeping the hope alive until whatever. It's like, now we can't even win the league now. Whatever would have been, it's like, we could have won the league because of whatever happened. So that was a bit of a horrible taste. I think if I'm honest, it's the one. I've got 100 lovely pages, 115 lovely pages at Chelsea. There's a bit of black ink on one of them, and I think that is it. That I look at and thinking that association. And luckily for me, it's not an association when you're sitting there going Super Cup final. You gave that. Do you know what I mean? It's a what if, and it's not really pointing a finger at me, but there's that sort of association because you come to sub. But for me, it's a little bit of it's not me, but like, I would love to have affected the game better because I've come on sub before and done this. And yeah, that's the one thing about that game.
Although, see, we didn't sort of get towards the point where we would be very, very close to Man United or Arsenal, we did achieve Champions League football, which at the time it was huge for Chelsea because we weren't sort of doing that on a regular basis in the early years of the Premiership. Although we achieved that feat, did you still believe that Chelsea's season finished a little bit flat, or was there the positive that Chelsea got that particular European competition to look forward to for next season?
I think you take the positive, but at the same time, it's the what if, isn't it? It's the what if. 'Cause everyone likes to, we could have done and put this, yeah, but it's the what if, and if it didn't happen, and you see it mathematically, you go to the end, but it's because the what if the door was closed shut. It's like when someone locks the last bit of food out your hand, but you didn't get that last bit of taste. It's that I feel cheated. I feel like, yes, you're always going to hang on to that, even though you got the Champions League. Yeah, but it's that I wanted to taste more. So I think it's the what if that just kind of like, yeah, I think that's more.
It was the summer of '99. You would leave Chelsea to join Leeds United for a fee, I believe it was around £4.5 million. There was rumours from what I was doing with research that you actually submitted a transfer request to wish to leave the club. How did this particular move come about for you to join Leeds United?
Oh, I've never handed in a transfer request.
Right.
Don't know what you do. I've never handed in a transfer request. The move comes because basically, for my point of view, is I wanted to play football, and it had been quite easy for me just to be the sub again. But I wanted to play football. I love playing football, and I wanted to play, and I wanted to feel a little bit of love as well. Chelsea's point of view is we've got Michael Duberry, great player for us, but also, if you just mentioned, they've got John Terry. So that he can be less frustrated being a sub role than Dubes can. Do you know what I mean? And they might see more potential in that. And it's as simple as that. So for me to go and play, I just wanted to go and play football. And I didn't want to just sit there. I wanted to sit there and say, not I got 4 league titles and I didn't really play anymore. Cup finals didn't play. I want to say, this is what I did, this is what I achieved, and this is my full potential. And I'd rather sit happy than that. And it's like your first love. You don't fall out. You just say, no, we're gonna go our separate ways. You go that uni, I go that uni. Um, and just went our separate ways. But the difference is you turn around and she's turned into Miss World, super hot, and I'm going, oh God, I should have stayed with her and hung around. No, but yeah, so there's me, it was like it was just like a decision of like, okay, we're actually go our separate ways. I need something different than what you do, and I need to go and get it elsewhere. Not a problem. And that's why we can come back and see each other. There's not a little animosity. Didn't like go, the club. It was just, and I think, having JT coming through, and it proved to be great for everyone. Like my career, I'm happy, played football, what I could do rather than sitting around and just being a bit of furniture at a club that's growing huge.
I want to touch on a little bit of the modern stuff now. And one thing that people have, it's divided a lot of opinion. Some people wish it was scrapped. So other people still can't stand it and think it might be to do not with the technology, but more with the people behind the scenes with it. And that's VAR. So, Michael, it's obviously it's a technology that's probably going to be here to stay. But what's your take on VAR?
Um, I I don't mind the consistency of the offside line, whatever it is, right? You get that, but even then, when you're watching it, you're thinking that's a crazy angle. The angle seems to change, so whatever it is, that seems to be consistent for everyone. But what's getting it used to be so you'd phone up your friend in the football stadium to ask him what's happening. Now people in the football stadium will phone up their people at home on TV and ask them what's happening because there's so much delay, what they're doing. And it's kind of the roles reversed, having to hang around for 8 minutes going, what's going on? They said VAR was so because was it help the referee or less of the impulsive man decisions, but it's just someone making a decision in a room. It's inconsistent because it's a different person, so there's never going to get the consistency. It's taken away from the whole emotion and feel of what football was, and everyone understood, the bad decisions and this and that. But then now you're getting bad decisions with all this technology. I mean, there's some good bits, but I don't get that they make a referee like watch the replay where everyone's seeing what he's watching. They should be like. He should like the NFL have a tent and let him watch what he wants to watch and have his decision. Like there's too much pressure on him watching rewind that, and then they're gonna. So I'm not a huge fan. I'm not a huge fan of it. I think it takes away some of the emotion. There's some good bits, the offside thing, but even then it's getting silly. Is it elbow? Oh, missed that. But at least if it's like this is how it is, and it's the same for everyone, and then that's the consistency everyone wants, regardless of what it is. It's the same for everyone. But would I want it? Like if what's the alternative? I think that with all this money, surely they should find a better alternative. You can't say that's the best they can do. Do you know what I mean? There should be a way of all this modern science. The NFL football seems to be so late with technology. The NFL have better data and better and it's still as fast as they get it. Do you know what I mean? Only thing NFL so slow is all the timeouts they have for the commercials, but technology wise, it's fast. They see it there and then, and football seems to be a little bit dated and a bit slow with it.
Speaking of dated and a little bit slow, I want to talk about Chelsea of 2024. Hasn't really been brilliant so far this season, or the last sort of 2 seasons, really. Obviously, we touched on it before we started recording, Michael, about obviously the difference with where the club's going and from a fan's perspective, there does seem to be a little bit of an uncertainty, with all due respect, pretty much of a disconnect between fans and the club at the moment. From an ex-player's point of view, and from somebody who still holds that true a true connection with the club, what's your take on Chelsea so far?
Um, it's sometimes a difficult watch. Maybe because no, I'm not going to put it down to expectations and what it used to be. Like, if you're judging it on this sort of era and that sort of era, um, there's a standard because when you sign players, you sign them on the standard of the club. So it's a difficult watch when you're seeing some of the stuff. And my thing has always been effort, like, and energy, like, and sometimes I just don't see that. I just don't see a care. And it's a hard thing to point at someone. But when you're watching teams come and outwork, like, lose, but not to be outworked and out hustled, and the body language, and that's what I look at. Like, I look at body language and how much effort people, like, how easy it is to get brushed off the ball. And so sometimes it's a difficult watch, and I don't want to be the old grumpy pro just shouting stuff out. Oh my God, like, God. And I never say my day, because in any generation, like, hard work, effort, look like you care, look like you want to win, has been the fundamentals of every successful team, regardless. Do you know what I mean? So when I see that, when I see, you know, yeah, there's not, listen, sometimes you're watching a game and I can see three players in a blue shirt that look like they're making an effort or look like they care. And the token hand clap and we come off, and, they're getting, sometimes it looks like they're getting more playing for the club than the club is getting from them playing for the club. It looks like it's a one-sided relationship, because they're playing with the club's reputation, but then at the same time they're not doing enough to enhance the club's reputation with performances and efforts.
What's your take on Mauricio Pochettino?
Um, to be honest with you, in like the time he's been at the club, like, I don't see, like, now we can recognize teams for their style and their patterns. And I watch the games and it looks like it's just free playing, like, just play what you see. There's not like patterns and movement. If he's going here, he's gonna be here. If he goes here, he's gonna be here. It just looks like he's got the ball. Where's the shirt? Oh, and that's why it just seems, oh, now we go backwards because I didn't see him. Well, I did, and everyone's like, oh, and there doesn't seem to be uh, a way of playing in place. That means that if someone comes in, you just play in that role or that role. It just seems to be, he comes in, he plays how he plays, and he plays how he plays, and he plays how he plays, and hopefully he's got an effort. And I get that there's a lot of players, but regardless of a lot of players, if everyone knows this is how we play, and if he's standing here, you should be here. And if I don't see there's a way of, I wouldn't tell you how he's set up to play. It doesn't look like, and he's been here a while, so he must have his own implement in place. I remember I did a thing at the big, like, I did for TV, like Malaysian TV, and early on when they played, I was at the Forest game, and the word project is like so open. Like, what kind of, like, come on now, like, it's like you're talking to a 7-year-old child. We're going to do in a project, like, it's like leaving it open. You're not going to tell them a date or when you're going to get, you know what I mean? The surprise. And they're going, oh, when the surprise, you'll get, it's like this whole project, like, what is it? Like, there's like, be clear, be concise, at least like, it's a 2-year project. It's going to be this, and this at the end of it. At least you can see or know what's going on. So just to say project and hope everyone's going to be like, fine then, no worries. You're just doing a project. We'll just sit back and wait for you to give us the next update. It seemed a little bit like flaky, and everyone, one thing people don't want to be spoken to like they're stupid. Like, we do know a little bit of stuff. We don't know the ins and outs what you're doing, but we do know a little bit of stuff. So this whole project, what is it? Because you don't see the project as a way of pattern of play. you don't see it in as a pattern of how you play. You just don't. It's a bit vague, if I'm honest. It's a bit vague, and so again, I'll go down to it's a tough watch because I just looking at like I wouldn't mind if it's 11 just players just going for it, and like we're not great pattern of play, but tell you what, at least we're tough and hard to beat. Bit soft in the belly and easy to beat, and and yeah, so it's a bit it's a bit difficult.
Last question, Michael. How do you look back on your time at Chelsea Football Club?
With joy, with pride. Um, I'm part of a great club. I'm forever etched in the history of the club. Um, I'm part of trophy winning teams, played with legends, icons. Um, People still mention me, and when I go around there, the love I get. So it's pride, it's joy. For me, from like humble beginnings, North London, to be part of a huge. Listen, don't get me wrong. The club has taken on another level that the association gets even bigger. But like, I played my part in the club, doing its thing, played its role. Um, so forever, I'm just happy to be part of it. If I'm honest.
Well, Michael, it's been an honour to have you on the Blue Day podcast today. Thank you very much for your time. I
Thank you.
massively appreciate it. It's been well worth the wait, don't worry. And
Thank you.
it'll be great to see you back at the bridge as well quite soon.
Yes, thank you very much. I will be.
Brilliant. You take
No
care.
worries. Yeah, look after yourself, yeah? See you later.